Hello, this is Lucy Fox from Lucy Fox Arts. Welcome to the Fox Den. This is a WIP that has been going on for 4 years, maybe more. The thing is, my style was very different 4 years ago. Very, very different. So when I came back to this page, I realized I didn't quite like the way I had done things. For example, well, this was not done. This Kettle was not done at all. Neither were these two mice. This one was done, but I didn't like the way it was. I don't know, something about it didn't please me. I had colored everything bright yellow in the stars. So what I did yesterday was I did a wash of watercolor on the kettle. Also, I used Prismacolor for the reflections and some of the darkest shadows on the body of the kettle. Here, where it's really, really dark, it's neutral tint, watercolor neutral tint. And what I hadn't liked is that I had done the fur on this little mouse, but it looked like he was losing hair, like he had bald patches on him and stuff like that. So I really didn't like it. I didn't try to erase in this case, I just colored over with my Prismacolors on the dark part right here on the shadow. And in the light parts I used my Polychromos. And then I did these two. And also I used my gel pens, my Languo gel pens, to erase the lines, sort of. Everywhere where I am considering that the light of the star will hit it, I did it was not this one. I used this warm yellow by Languo, one of the lightest yellows. It's almost lemony. And I did little highlights. It's not done, it's not finished yet. I used white Languo gel pen and yellow in the areas. Also, I did a little more fur detail. Still not completely done. And I used a black Languo pen. Let me see. Oh, here. And that completely lied. I said I used that gel pen. It was not. It was all Languo, but basically they're the only gel pens I have. I have a few others, but I don't use them in coloring books because I tried and it was horrendous. So the pens I used were these. I used the sketch color, which is a gray, for these little parts. I would try to take a picture because if I zoom in, it will lose resolution. I record on my phone and it's not really good with zooms. But I would try to take a picture real close and then put it on post. I used the light. I'm gonna show you. I'm not gonna paint again, but I used right here on the ear. Right here as well. It's like I was covering the black line, but I wasn't really covering. I was making these little flick motions to act as hair. And in some parts, like right here and here on the thigh of this mice on top of the kettle, and on his chest going into the arm, a little bit on the, I don't know, that wouldn't be the shoulder, on the elbow, yeah, it would be the elbow. I did a little bit of these flicking motions to create the illusion of fur. The same here on the mice that is sort of inside the kettle. And I did here on the back of the ear. And I did on top of the color pencil. And you just need not touch it until it's completely dry, then it will not rub off. But if you touch it, it will mirror. So The good part is if you make a mistake, what you gotta do is wipe it with your finger, but in my case, I did not want it to remove it, so I just wait until it dried. I did here near the chest area in the arm, here on near the thigh, and here behind the ear with the black gel pen. I used Deco Yellow, Cream and Canary Yellow from Prismacolor on these parts right here, right where the light hits. Here, 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 and here. Also here on the corner of the handle, here near the tail of the mice on top, in the inner part of the handle where there's the star nearby. I used my Prismacolor, mostly the Deco Yellow, but I did right here in the back a little bit of an accent of the canary. And that's what I've done to fix it. Also, I used matte acrylic paint. First, of course, I had painted yellow, all of those things. So what I did was I got an electric eraser. This one, it's a 10 win. I have another one that I use sometimes. I did that around the mouse because I had gotten really close with the blue. So I erased just a tiny line around the mouse, or the mice, because I did around all of them. I think here you can see it a little bit. And I erased the yellow from all of the stars and this candle and its rim light. I erased all of it. And then I applied matte acrylic paint on these stars and here. I was just careful not to get too much into the metal. I got a little bit in the rim where exactly where the line art is, but it doesn't bother me too much because I wanted to look like it's a bit obfuscating the darkness of the metal. What else? Oh yes, everything where is yellow, and I added the Prismacolor to make the really glare of the light. I had actually before, 4 years ago when I started this, I had colored black. But luckily for me, I had used Polychromos black, which, as you probably know, it's not the most dark of the blacks. So it was fairly easy to erase. Also, I didn't burnish it. I did just a tiny layer. Because when I first looked for references, usually these parts here were encased in shadow. But the thing is, since all these stars are my light source, and there's one right here, this part cannot be encased in shadow. So I had to erase all the parts where I had previously made shadows and had to create new ones. I created a bit of a shadow for the handle of the kettle right here, and I thought it would be really, looking at it, I thought, well, this is really crooked. But then I started to follow where those things would end. That's what I did to fix what I had previously done. And I didn't like it because my style changed so much. I like to believe I evolved a lot, which I'm not sure if that's the case, but I try to. So this fur, I'm going to finish the furs on the mice, and I want to finish all of these stars. I have a few other grays. This is Light Fast Moonstone and Procolor Felt Gray, which I use for his knout right here. And this is Polychromos. I'm using a really hard pencil. Okay, I think I got you closer, at least a little bit. This is a warm gray 6. 6? Yes, warm gray 6 by Polychromos. And what I'm going to do, where's my clip? I have this clip. It's a very heavy one. It's magnetized, but I don't use it for the magnet. I use it for the weight. Because then I know that the page is not going to go anywhere. I'm doing a few darker fur lines. What I'm doing here, I'm just thinking if what part of the rat, or is that a mouse or a rat? I don't know. Of this little rodent, what part of him would be curving, right? So he got a round back and bottom, right? So I'm trying to follow along. And I'm doing dark here, really dark, because usually when you have an area of a lot of light, you have a really dark one in contrast of. And now I'm going to go for a middle color. And I might go with a Prisma, in fact. I don't like using Prismacolor for these though. I'm going to try the Moonstone. And I want warm gray 4. I'll try the Moonstone. I don't know if it's going to work. Oh yeah, jeez. Well, I did sharpen them a bit too much, to be honest. I use my electrical sharpener and sometimes I forget that I don't need that much of a needle point. In my electrical sharpener, it says it has 3 levels, but honestly, I tried all 3 levels and to me they all sharpen exactly the same. Now I'm doing a bit of a jumbled mess here. I don't want to completely look like he had a brush for this fur or anything, right? So I'm doing a little messed up. It wouldn't be all that natural, right? When we observe someone, mostly people with short hair because you can see better, but everyone has that. If you look at someone's hair, there's always a point where different directions of hair meet and they get all jumbled, right? And what I'm gonna do, instead of doing hair by hair now, I'm just doing like if it was scribbling or scratching. So I don't keep too much of a fur that has been thoroughly brushed and stuff. If this was a Yorkshire, maybe I would do as if it was brushed because their hair tend to, well, their fur tend to act a lot like hair. Right? The same thing here on the other mouse. The paper curled a little bit because I did not prep this page to use watercolor in it, and I use watercolor only in the Kettle. So a part of the page curled when it received water, but the rest of it didn't receive water, so it stayed the same, so it got a bit wobbly. But after you press them one against one another, it should be fairly easy to fix it. Now I'm going to use cream. I want something less bright. I'm going with sand. No, jasmine, golden rod, mineral orange, no, cadmium orange hue for the fire, and Spanish orange, which to me is really yellow. Now, here's the kicker. Yeah, I think it's enough. I always had this feeling that we should paint the flame orange or red. Turns out you don't really, because the flame is actually white. And again, this is matte acrylic paint. It could be craft matte acrylic paint. I'm being very, very gentle here. This is not Dan. This is not craft acrylic paint. I'm trying to remember the name. I bought this little small beginner set to test it out. I have it. It's called Flashe by Le Frankenbourgeois. It's Flashe Emotion Vinylique. Like you have PVA glue, you also have PVA paint. It's based by polyvinyl, right? It's a vinyl paint. And most craft paints is actually vinyl paint, and this one is a fancy version of that. Well, supposedly it's very light fast. I mean, if I did not have all of them to test side by side, I would not be able to tell them apart. And I mean that in terms of using coloring books and their performance, right? Now I'm using cream. I used a Spanish, no, jasmine around the cadmium orange hue. Now I'm doing cream just to blend it, and I'm not being too heavy-handed here. Oh. I'm being as gentle as I can, while still winning from this. I'm trying to win from the texture of the paint because this paint is matte, so it's got a grippy texture in it. Almost like adding tooth to the paper or applying gesso, but gesso is way less responsive to color pencil. Matte acrylic paint, at least these are ones I use, are much better. I have a little brush that I always keep it with me. Here. It's a makeup, or I think it's nail art brush, but either way. Now where's my white? My white, my poor little white is this tiny at this point. But I do not want to not use it, you know. Because in my area, Prismacolors don't exist. I have to, sorry, get quiet when I'm trying to focus here. But I have to virtually, when I order, I have to at least order 10 of them to be able to order them, and they come, I basically import them. So they are very hard to come by, so I use them all to the end. I think I'm gonna go with Spanish orange from here on. Just a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Very gently, barely touching it. Now, jasmine. When I separate the pencils, doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily use them all. I just, in this case, I am, but sometimes I don't. I think I want to add more cream and settle this a little bit. Now I'm going to put cream. No. No, 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 no. I'm using white. It got too yellowish, almost like not being light per se. So I didn't like the result and I added white on top. I really don't want it to be too blurry. I'm going to add cream now only on the bottom part, on the outer part of the light. I don't know how to call this. This is a rim. No, it's not a rim light. This is a halo? I'm gonna call it a halo. Whatever this really is. So, the one I did for Halloween, I did something really similar because I think it was always a lamp. No. I mean, always a lamp? No. Also a lamp, but it wasn't. I think it was a candle. Well, this is a candle, but it's a candle lamp, right? Okay. It's not so bad here. I thought it would be worse. I thought I wasn't going to like the result. I'm not liking the result too much. Okay, I'm going back with the white on top. Just to mute it a little bit. It's just I feel it's too orangey and the shadows I made are really bright. So I'm almost... You know what? I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. I have this is a kneaded eraser. I will remove a little bit of the Prismacolor because it's really waxy, right? And I want to free some of the tooth. See, it picks up a good chunk of the color. Okay, and I'm going to go with my Deco Yellow. I want it to be a more cold kind of light. Yeah. Oh, I'm instantly liking this a lot more. Oh yes, much better. So, change of plans. Spanish orange is no more. Okay. Oh, this is much better. I'm going to remove some of the orangey. And the thing is, typically I could use a regular eraser, but with Prismacolors I think they smudge a little bit, and also I applied paint here. If I use a razor I risk rubbing the paint off. In that case it would not be very interesting, right, to the health of this paper. I already erased the whole thing I had done previously before applying the paint, so it had gone through some trauma already. Okay. Oh, this is much better, yes. I quite like the effect. I'm gonna do something similar to the stars here now. I don't know if you can see it, let me check. But I did apply paint, but it didn't cover completely the stars. Oh yeah, I need to make the candle. I need putty beige. Putty beige. And I think beige sienna maybe. Yeah. I'll use beige sienna to act like if it was a Kettle. Now put your beige on top. Very light layer of pretty beige. I'm gonna go with the white. And I'm gonna go with French gray 90%. Just here under it. Case. And again with the white. I'm going to try to layer some white on top without blending. I just want to lighten the detail a little bit. Yeah, I think that's well enough. Now for the stars. I'm thinking, I think I'll go. Typically I would just make the stars white, but since I had already painted yellow, there is a shadow of the old yellow here. I will paint them yellow. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna go around. So I'll stay with Deco Yellow, Cream, Sand, and my tiny white, which I use a makeup sharpener for. Right here. You see it? I can barely twist it anymore. Yeah, it's decent enough. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start with the sand first. And what I'm doing is I'm just painting or coloring the inner corners of the star. Now I'm going to go in with the Deco Yellow. And I'm going to do the exact same thing, just a little less defined. Same thing here in all the corners. Okay. I'm going to do this until going right on top of the tips, around the tips. And I'm not going to use the cream on these right now. I'm going to do the same in all stars. See? Yeah, all of them are in frame, I suppose. Yeah, I think so. I'm going to do the same with all of them. So starting with the sand, just in the little inner corners. Same here. Just a disclaimer, doesn't mean I know what I'm doing, it's just the way I saw reference pictures and I realized that when you do light, that thing doesn't really have a color at first, especially like, I do not recommend doing that, but sometimes you look at the sky and the sun is right up. And in that case, you will see it's not a yellow, right? It's white. So the same thing it is with almost everything that is light or emits light. It's actually white in the middle, and then it will disperse or reflect color around it. So I'm treating the star as if it's a source of light. So I'm creating the color of the light around it. I'm looking at this little mice, and I did so much yellow here that it looks like he's done highlights on his hair. It's not a light highlight, it looks like it's a chemical one. Like I went to the hair salon and said, hey, I want to change my hair color or my fur color. And now I'm gonna do this with deco yellow around the star, the little arms of the star. I'm doing this all in one corner first, and then I move on to the next corner. Okay. I'm doing this in a round shape, just so I can blend it a little bit. But I'm not going too hard on it. I don't even need it because the matte texture of the paint grabs a good chunk of pigment here. Okay, again with the deco yellow, blending the sand. I'm using Prismacolors because well, typically they go on top of everything, first of all, so because this is a fixer-upper, I thought it was safe to go with safer to go with the Prismacolor. But even if it wasn't, I'll probably use the Prismacolor anyway because of my arthritis. My hand is still bugging me quite a bit. And I went to the doctor, and I went to my rheumatologist, the one that cares for my joints, and he said, no, this is an occupational problem. You have to go to a hand specialist. I went to the hand specialist, and he ordered some tests, and he said, this is not a hand issue, this is an arthritis, a rheumatological issue. You need to go back to your rheumatologist and tell him to get a grip on your arthritis, because your immune system is going haywire and it's attacking your own hands, the joint in your hand. And that's why it's all swollen, and that's why you're feeling like it's carpal tunnel syndrome, with the tingling and lack of strength and lack of control and the pain. And then I went back to my rheumatologist who said, I disagree, I think this is a hand issue and you need to operate. And then I went back to the hand doctor who said, I disagree with the rheumatologist. So I went through this back and forth over and over again. And eventually my rheumatologist accepted that he needed to change my medication. He had prescribed a different medication to see if it would work, but there was no result, so he changed to my old medication, which is an injectable medication, all the way to... So now I'm gonna go through my... Well, luckily I live in a country where healthcare is basically free, but it's a mixed system, right? You have paid and you have free healthcare. Some things are paid, some things are free. So now I'm going through the process of asking for the government to pay for my medication, which it will, but it takes a little while until the paperwork goes through and all the bureaucracy. In the meantime, I'm on pain meds and I'm not working because that would be impossible. I can only use my hand with any kind of precision for about an hour a day before it starts tingling and burning. It's a burning feeling, not actually burning, but it's a tingling, burning feeling. It took me like 3 days just to do these little corrections here. I'm a slow colorist, but even this should not be this long for me. And here we go. And like I was saying, my pencil of choice is Prismacolor because it feels almost like an oil pastel. It's so creamy. And since I used paint here, and that's another reason why I used watercolor on the Kettle, it's because I knew that to get this effect with pencils only, it would take way too long. And it would severely abuse of my ability to have precision. That's why I'm using Prismacolors. I do like the feel, but I also like hard pencils, I even said in my video, don't recommend Derwent Artist pencils if you have arthritis, and yet I got them. The same with Pro Colors and other really hard pencils like that. But that's because the whole thing of layering, to me, it can be quite satisfactory. It can be relaxing and calming. It can have that effect on me sometimes. I can get a page that is really tricky and requires lots of layering and blending. And once I figure out what I'm going to do with that page, and I have the mental map in my hand, I separate the colors I'm going to use it. Whoa! Hey, Lucy from the future here. I just realized I went on a pencil separation tangent and didn't finish what I was saying. Let's fix that. I was saying once there are no more decisions to make, I can mindlessly layer colors into oblivion. It's very relaxing. Okay, back to the video. Anyway, oh yes, I was talking about hard pencils and soft pencils, right? I think that's what I was saying. And I like soft pencils, but I also like layering a lot, so I like very much using hard pencils. And it's because, like I said, hard pencils can be relaxing to me. But if I want to be quick about something, I would prefer to have a softer pencil in hand. However, I do know that some people prefer softer pencils not for any health issues, mostly just they don't have the patience to layer, or they just feel it's more comfortable, and it is indeed more comfortable to use softer pencils. But I grew up with harder pencils. When I was a kid, well, there wasn't even that much variety, but we had Faber-Castell, which was the crème de la crème, and I don't mean Polychromos, I mean the red box, the kids version. And there was no black edition that is very soft. Nope. We only had the red box, and I think the largest amount was 48 colors. When I was a kid, we as kids my age, I think. We didn't even have Crayola, which is a tad bit softer than Faber-Castell, even though it's actually manufactured by Faber-Castell. And yes, Crayola is manufactured by Faber-Castell, and I know because I visited the factory. But because Faber-Castell sells here in where I live a lot, it's like they are the strongest brand, most famous and legacy brand, even for kids stuff. And Crayola is like their own staple in homes. They don't mix places where they sell. So Crayola only sells in the United States and I think in Mexico. I also know they sell in Paraguay as well. But that's because they had a dollar-based economy, so they depend on the United States for most things. Or they used to back in the early 2000s. And that's why you can find Crayola over there, but you cannot find them in other countries in South America. Of course, that sometimes you can find them, but you don't find them in the stores. You find people that travel abroad, brought a bunch of them, and are selling them online. But back in my day, we only had Faber-Castell, the red tin, and that is a hard pencil. So if you don't learn how to layer, you're never gonna finish a coloring page in your life. And this is how I started with a 48 box of red Faber-Castells. That's how I started coloring. And that was like 10 plus years ago. That was actually 10 years ago, almost on the dot. I think I'm going to do some accents on the Kettle as well. And I'm thinking about blending with some white. I'm going to use my cream. Not everywhere, just on this too, because I erased a bit too much of the white. These three actually. But I don't want them to turn green as soon as I start blending with the white. So I'm going to use the cream because it has more white than yellow in its formula. Yes, Lucy, you say only those two, and then now you're doing the ones you're not supposed to be doing. Duh. Okay. On the Kettle, probably. I apologize if you can hear horning and honking, but my street used to be a quiet street, and now, oh lord, I don't know how, but I messed up some blue here. But nowadays it's cars and motorcycles honking all over, and it's not even rush hour now. And literally stranded at home without being able to walk today. So I'm going nuts with absolutely nothing to do, just twiddling my thumbs. Well, not even that, because I can barely twiddle my thumbs right now. Now I'm doing with more pressure than I typically do it because I had erase, so there isn't much pigment left, and this was Polychromos. The whole base of the sky was Polychromos. I need a piece of tissue for cleaning my pencil because it's grabbing up a lot of the blue underneath. I'm gonna keep the tissue nearby just so I don't. And yes, I'm aware that there are such things as pencil extender, but this one is so small it doesn't even fit in a pencil extender. And I do use all my pencils this way, like, as in I use them until they're all very tiny. Even my Polychromos that is somewhat easier to find, I can go to an art store near me and grab a color. But I can also run the risk of getting to the store and say, oh, we're out of that color, we're only going to receive it in the next month, yada yada. So I'm not gonna say stingy, because I think stingy is when people buy their supplies and don't use them because they feel they're too precious. And I use them, but I use them till the end, till the very, very end. I really don't want to waste them. And also, I have no problem destashing if it's something I don't use. But I really think we have to destash if it's something we don't use it because someone can use it, you know? And when I was a kid, there was no such thing as let's stimulate her creativity. There was also not such an abundance of variability of art supplies. I know a lot of people throw flack at budget brands because they always come up with new stuff, you know, consumerism and stuff. But honestly, variety is a good thing. And it is, because I wish that I had had color and budget style pencils when I was a teenager. Or as Harry from the Audio Guide would say, young artists. So I do feel like budget brands are there for a reason, and we should cherish them and hope that they one day establish themselves. I mean, even if their market is the budget market, it's still a really large portion of the market, you know? And a large portion that deserves to be able to have access to supplies. And I wish that more people would have access to those things. Yes, of course, the legacy brands have their own appeal, like Lightfast and stuff, but honestly, they just want things that feel good to use. And I'm really happy that nowadays we have a middle ground. We have quality supplies that are somewhat cheaper. And I have no idea how I ended up in this tangent. I think I was talking about that I prefer to pass along in these stash supplies. I will do some gel pen accents. Okay, we're finishing up. Now I'm going to get my gel pens. I think this one is enough. This is warm yellow. This darker goldish, brownish color. This is Lango from the warm yellow set, but I think there was one that's from the Morandi set that also is very similar to this. And now I'm going to use the light color one. It's a cream. It looks white, but it's not. It's a cream color. And I'm going to use right here to cover up these lines. I'm not going to cover every line, but the ones that are near the light or adjacent to the light, I will try to cover. I didn't touch these little flags, even though I don't think their lights are correct. But I didn't mess with them because, nah, there's no need to mess with them really. Not like the lighting police will come up and say, oh, you shaded this wrong and highlighted this wrong. Well, yes, I did. And it was a long time ago. And if I could correct it, but honestly, I think that's quite unnecessary if you ask me. Where else do I want it? I want it here, right here. Because it's really close to the star, that's why. And I could use the white one, no problems, but I honestly don't want to. Okay. This one right here. You know, I never realized, but now I do. looking at it. How surreal this painting is, this drawing is. If you think about it, right? I mean, these are mice, super close to the sky and the stars. And they are... Oh, I went overboard here. Yeah, too much. Okay. They're super close to the stars. And they are in a sea that is not a sea or whatever this is. And this Kettle is a submarine or something because of the tiny window. So now I look at it and I think, oh wow, this is very, very surreal or something, you know? What else needs highlighting? Oh, okay. These need highlighting. I'm going to use the yellow. Sometimes because I'm putting gel pens on top of wax, it takes a little while. Also, I always clean. I have a paper towel right next to me, right here to the side. And I clean the tip just so I make sure that there is no wax getting inside this pens. The last thing I want is wax clogging my Languor pens. They are very dear to me and they were very hard to get because, again, I have to import all those things, most of those things. And in my area, import taxes are brutal. And I'm not even kidding. So because of that, I tend not to take for granted the art supplies I get my hands on. Okay. No. Is this? No, this is the darkest one. I'm not going to do the whole thing, just a bit of a transition there. Where else does it need? I think here. This is the tail of the mice. Okay. Okay, I'm going to use this green one right here just to cover some of these little dots that she used to shade because I did fur on him, right? So just going along with the stuff I did. I'm going to use this really dark one just to finish the stuff I didn't do. And I don't know, maybe it is my ADHD. I do have it, diagnosed and treated. But I keep forgetting those things sometimes. And they're tiny little details that I keep forgetting, which it's been fun how I manage to do it, but I forget, like, oh, this little piece of the rope, this piece of cord right here. Then there is light coming through this spot. This yellow here, because there is light here, right? It's a bit far away, so if it's really close, I'll probably do white, but alright. There is, I think I'm gonna do this one with the full on white. Because there is a star right here. I want to lighten up this area a little bit. And this is definitely not my best work, but oh well. Same thing here. And I said I was not going to fix the little flags and stuff like that. Well, I'm not fixing, I'm just highlighting. Sort of. Okay. Same thing here. Now, I'll use the darkest one I've got here to color this little rope. Granted, most people won't even notice that this was not colored, but I would know. And I said, let's record a really short video. I should know by now. I don't do short videos. I am a slow colorist, I just need to own it. Sorry for the silence. Trying to not mess it up. I didn't come so far to mess it up in the last minute. We call it done? Maybe. I'm going to make like a glow here. I'm not sure if this doesn't make any sense, but what I do is I barely touch the paper with the ball. Because if I press too hard, I might get some railroading. Really light hands. Okay, enough waffling. Let's call this done, shall we? Because I could be fiddling and waffling with it forever. Because I want to start playing with my new Hanna Karlzon books, which are not new as in they were released new, they are from the old collection, just like this is Daydreams. But they are I didn't have the other ones. I only had Seasons and Daydreams. And I finally got like 3 other ones from her old collection. And I want to play with it, but I was feeling so guilty because I have so many WIPs to finish. So I'm trying to finish them so I can play with my new books a little bit without feeling horribly guilty. Put some reflections in the glass here. Is it done? Did I forget anything else? Okay. I finally finished. I'm so happy. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you for your company. I wish you a wonderful evening and see you in the next one.